Welcome to the VandySports post-game show. I'm your host, Chris Lee. Bruno Reagan joins me. He's with us at VandySports.com. He is also a former Commodore football player. A special thanks to Dr. Jody Jones for his sponsorship of our efforts. Also Sutherland and Belk. Bruno, let's get right to it. 42-0 loss today in Gainesville. There are some good things to it. We'll get into those. I wrote about some of those, but mostly, goodness, second half was just deflating.
Yeah, it looks like a defeated team. They did some good things in the first half, but when you go into halftime, they're probably just, there's a different vibe when you're getting blown out, quote unquote, and when it's a game you assume to win. Let's be honest, Chris, we didn't assume, Vandy was going to come out of here with a win. I mean, the spread was like 39 points by itself. So even though they played well, it's just, I could only imagine being a player on this type of team. It must be tough. Just I can't even really speak on it. I don't know how I would react. We had our own adversities when I played, but this is a whole nother deal.
I asked a question in the post game about did the turn of events at the end of the first half, and really it wasn't just that, right? It was also the fact that they couldn't cash in time and time again in the red zone. You had a couple of missed field goals. Goodness, you had 4 cracks from the one, even with the play that got overturned to Chris Pierce, which frankly I didn't think should have been overturned. I mean, I guess it's immaterial other than it was the difference between a shutout and not a shutout. But I said to both Clark Lee and Cam Johnson, I said, was that deflating? Was that a thing that kind of got you down? Because Florida puts up 21 points to start the third quarter in a span of about 5.5 minutes, and not the first time we've seen that. But they said no, it wasn't. In fact, Cam said we went into the locker room feeling like we'd given it a pretty good shot. The scoreboard didn't reflect that. These are my words and not his. His were probably a lot different, but he said, if anything, it kind of gave us confidence, which makes what happened in the second half a little bit more perplexing to me.
It could also be, listen, Florida, it's notorious when I was there that they would always overlook us and play down to us. 100%. I mean, I think about the 21-3 when Felipe Franks was their quarterback all the time and we were up, and then Keyshawn went out and they sort of picked it up and we sort of came down, and then those levels are flat now. That's like, if I was a Florida analyst, that's what I would frustrate me most about this team, is this team plays to its level of competition 100%. This is a team that was toe for toe with Bama, Chris. Does that not blow your mind?
Yeah,
that's been the story of Florida forever, ever since like Tebow left. That's what they are. They're extremely undisciplined. Which is something that showed today in somehow a 42-0 line. Isn't it crazy? The storyline of a 40-point shutout is like, oh, we didn't play good enough for Florida. So
yeah,
that's an interesting take in of itself. But yeah, if Cam said it, there's no reason for Cam to come out there and give like a straight up lie. Like, I assume he was like, oh, okay, we're playing pretty well. But I think maybe Florida was like, okay, we got to pick it up. This is not at their level.
Well, if you saw Dan Mullen at halftime, he was not pleased at all in the halftime interview, and I thought, boy, he's going to light into his team at half. And really, I've said this from the beginning, okay? They are not at a point where you can judge a lot by how they play Florida. They don't have the speed Florida's got. I mean, that was obvious from the first drive. And there's nothing you can do. When the other guy gets the ball in space, which is going to happen, and he's faster than you, there's only so much you can do. So I didn't think that giving up 42 then defensively was that bad. You should never get shut out. I think the offense played better in the first half, a lot better. And look, if you're new to the show, we're not sunshine pumpers, and we'll get to the rest a little bit later. None of that stuff bothered me. It was probably more just the missed opportunities, the missed field goals, the times that they could have cashed in. I mean, Bruno, this could have easily been a 42-17 type game, and then we're probably talking about it a little differently. They had no business playing with Florida. But what I wanted, and I said this on a podcast this week, I want them to go into some games where you leave them going, okay, they played better than we thought they could, and they took Florida into the fourth quarter, or whatever that might look like. Just give me something a little bit unexpected. Give me a win over South Carolina or Missouri or somebody, and that still can happen. But I was like, before the season, I said I thought this was probably a 3-win team, maybe a 4-win team. So it's not the wins and losses component that bothers me. It's you had a chance to make this more respectable than you did, and you didn't. And that's where they've got to get better.
I mean, my God, Chris, part of being a competitor and a football player is like having that clutch gene, right? Like when it's time to make a play, do you make the play? If it's a clutch situation or you're in the red zone, do you do what's expected of you? It's a human element. So there's going to be a penalty every now and then. Going to happen. You can't avoid it. But it's every dang time something happens. Wide receiver drops wide open, like just ball hits wide receiver in the chest. Offensive lineman misses a block. It's not just this season, it's last season, but that's not Clark's season, so a lot of people are going to write that off. That's got to change. Like, football is just about 11 guys just doing their job. Just doing their job, man. It's so frustrating to just see the musical chairs of critical errors. You know, there's 2 types of errors in football: assignment errors and critical errors. Both are bad. But when you're getting a fresh mix of both, God, it's just it's terrible to watch. Florida had a lot in there too, and that's why, you know, Vanderbilt ended up getting more plays than them, more first downs. They were better than them on penalty yards this game, but other than that, yeah, this team's got a long way to go, and which sucks to hear because it's already been a long process of losing a lot for Vanderbilt. But this team has to cut that out and at least play an SEC team close one time this year. It just has to happen. We just can't have blowouts all year, come back next year and be like, okay, maybe this year we'll play closer. No, like, we need substantial steps to see.
Opportunities next week. I don't know if you followed Tennessee, South Carolina, but Tennessee was up 38-7 at half. Had almost 400 yards of total offense. Which I think would deflate Carolina a bit. Their second half response was pretty good, though, from the Gamecocks. So that wasn't a team that threw in the towel. And maybe, I don't know what's better or worse, if you caught Carolina off a total embarrassment or you caught them off a situation where they played better in the second half. And we're splitting hairs at this point. But next week is one of those games, that in Missouri, that if they're going to beat somebody, it's one of those two. And I don't think there's a close second at this point. But I want to ask you a couple things. What did you make of the overturned touchdown pass with Chris Pierce? Because to me, this is what I can't stand about replay, okay? We now use it to plays that we used to look at and say, he caught the ball. We're slowing these down to milliseconds and going, oh, well, the ball moved a little bit there. You know, after he'd already had it in his possession and hit the ground. I don't know. To me, it's not the worst call I've ever seen, but I just didn't see enough to overturn that.
That's the whole point, is like, is there indisputable video evidence?
Yep.
The key word is indisputable. Not we're taking guys who are probably retired from their real careers that are SEC officials now, and we're treating them like they're United States government officials, you know, expecting them to understand the true definition of indisputable video evidence. And if you're there and you're sitting there, someone tweeted me with a great point. If it takes 10-minute review, the call should stand. There should be a timer on the review, and if it really takes you that long to come to a decision, boom, it's over. And that's frustrating in any. I hate the game being stopped for any aspect. I can't stand TV timeouts. I can't stand normal timeouts. Just let us play the game. So the fact that we're seeing how many? There were a lot of reviews today of just stupid stuff.
A lot of it was targeting, and some of that was it should have been reviewed, but yeah. I mean,
the jumping up and then just spiking his head down was pretty interesting. It's frustrating. There should have a time limit on the reviews, and if you can't come to a decision, but it's as if they were just looking for something, because you couldn't see, like you could see a little bit, but you couldn't see, like it wasn't indisputable to be overturned. It was wrong. It was just straight up wrong.
The other one, the penalty on Ben Cox. They are gonna have the ball, I don't know, maybe 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, whatever, at the 10 or the 9. And Cox gets called for a block. I guess after the whistle. I don't know. To me, and I could be wrong. I don't have a this was a horrible call that changed the game kind of feeling, but that was one to me that I watched like that's just football. But I mean, you're an offensive lineman. How did you feel about that one?
Yeah, I like there was also that one where was it Patrick, the new back guy? I think he got hit. He got hit in play, but he's a little bit smaller, so he flew out of bounds, right? Yeah. And they threw a flag on that. It was the same exact thing. Like it needs to be where it's so blatant, like it's blatant, not the sideline jumping up and then it's as if the officials are just reacting to the sidelines because he got hit in the Vanderbilt sideline, so he just goes whoa, and then you're on the field and then maybe the Florida player gets hit and says something on his way down. He's like, what the heck? And then the ref just react. It was a bad officiating day. Err on the side of not calling the penalties. Let the guys play. That's always been my
the Smith hit. I thought live looked dirty, and then I watched the replay. I was like, oh, I think the commentators are right. They probably should not have thrown that flag.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where the energy is just like, oh,
Yeah.
So the ref's like, oh yeah, 100%. It gets caught into it.
Okay, let's talk about something good. I liked the offensive play calling better the first half. I thought the things that we have said all year, where is this, where is that, where's Cam Johnson, among other things. I thought a lot more of that was there today. At halftime, what total offense was 214 to 200, something like that. And I know Vandy had a lot more plays, and the yards per play was not good. I mean, it was, I think, 4 or maybe 3.9, something like that, which isn't good. But Vanderbilt also had 14 first downs. And if you're making a script to beat Florida, it's probably control the clock, control the ball, keep the defense off the field. You always want more yards per play, but it was kind of working out in a good way for them. They cash in. Let's say the touchdown doesn't get overturned. Let's say they get a couple of field goals. It's 21-13. It's a different ballgame. Look, they didn't, right? And it worked both ways. Colorado State missed field goals, and that's one reason Vanderbilt won. That's just football, but it could have gone some different ways early, and it didn't. And when it was going well for them, I liked a lot more of what I saw in terms of the play calling. It just seemed like they changed some things and took them to heart, and it looked better. And I think it helped them move the ball.
Yeah, I think Patrick Smith came out and played like he had something to prove. I thought that was very impressive. Offensive line, listen, the play is extremely underwhelming. What else is there to be said? Florida matched our sacks season total in this game against us. It's hard to point out those wins when all the things are just so blatantly like off pace. Because you're explaining that this could have been a competitive ball game. Well, you don't sack the quarterback a single time against any of the teams for 3 weeks. It's not going to be. So there needs to be this perfect set of circumstances to happen for Vanderbilt to be competitive. It's not going to happen. These other teams are going to go out and they're going to take it.
Well, and let me just say one thing. If people have not watched this before and thinking these guys are ridiculous, they're sitting here in a 42-0 game talking about this could have been and that could have been a different game. A, neither of us for a second believed they were going to win the game. But B, just that kind of season where we've already been through this script so many times, you have to try to find something that's positive and isolated. And there were some things there.
Yeah, there were some things. I think sometimes Ken shined. I mean everybody was playing hard. Florida's not a bad talented team. That whether you can question their coaching, I do all the time, but that Vanderbilt was running through tackles, playing through the whistle. It was it wasn't all bad, but I think Ken struggled again, and that's not all entirely. Some of it's Ken's fault. Not all of it is entirely Ken's fault. I do think, if I need to make sure there's an opinion still there, I think you still just ride with Ken, get Mike right the time you can when you can, but you gotta ride with Ken because worst thing we can do is 8 games into the season we just like, all right, whatever, cut Ken out and let's just give Mike the keys and all right, we're back next year. We'll be back on square one. There needs to be a short-term and a long-term plan, and they have to stick there and ride with it. And I don't know what it is, but you just stay consistent, create your own destiny, and expect something out of your players and give them a goal, because it just seems like we aimlessly walk out into games, Chris. We walk out into games, we're like, all right, I hope it goes well. That's never going to win.
As a good friend of mine says, hope is not a strategy. And I'm going to ask you a question while I go kill this annoying light that's over my head that I don't know if it's bugging the viewers as much as it's bugging me. Let me ask you something. Speed was the reason I said they couldn't win this game, and speed was the thing that was evident that they didn't have enough of from the first snap. There was no way they were going to win this game. They can't overcome that. Clark Lee doesn't like to take transfers. I mean, that's not his first plan. I just don't see how you get a lot better next year unless he finds some at key positions. Other than that, how do you fix what is wrong on the speed end and particularly on defense?
I saw someone ask if there was a issue with the strength and conditioning. Listen, some people are born with a limiter. Chris, I love you, man. If you trained every day of your life twice a day for 2 years,
there's
you're
no
not
way
running a 4.4.
Nope.
You're not running a 4.4. Some people have limiters. I had a ton of limiters.
Were you running a 4.4?
No.
If you run a 4.4, I want to be there to see that.
Yeah, maybe in another parallel universe. But
right.
The point being is, like, you can blame strength and conditioning all you want. Some of these guys, they're at their peak. These guys worked hard.
And Bruno, that's what I'm getting at. You can't get a lot faster when you're in college. So the answer is it's more personnel, which means you're going to have to get freshmen who can come in and play at a high level right away in the SEC, which Vanderbilt traditionally does not get. You might get 4 or 5. You might get, like, most of the kids that you get as freshmen, in a good scenario, it's a Patrick Smith, where he does some nice things. Jalen Mahoney a couple years ago, where he does some nice things. Every once in a blue moon, you get an Earl Bennett who just flashes in as a stud from day one. That's a once every 10 or 15 years occurrence at Vanderbilt. So having said, if you're not going to get game changers right away out of your freshman class, you've got to take transfers or else what, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I think you have to, because we can't just sit there here on this product for, however long. Because when I look back on our teams and how bad they were, I always felt like we had the talent. I saw when I wrote my article and opened the conversation, like Mason did less with more initially. A lot of people were bringing up, Spencer Pulley, Kyle, like just a ton of people that had significant talent in NFL teams on those rosters that had 3 wins, and that's not going to be the case with this team, right?
Yeah.
So how do we get those guys on this team now? It's not just gonna happen overnight. So
Bruno, the only teams in the league that do that are the Georgias, the Floridas, and the Georgias, the Alabamas, maybe the LSUs in certain seasons, and the Floridas. Other than that, like even the Tennessees, the South Carolinas, the Ole Misses, they'll hit on a few, but you don't bring in a starting left tackle as a true freshman like Alabama or Georgia will do. That's a first rounder. You can't do it. So it's like, if there's going to have to be, either he's going to be content to slow play this into wins across seasons, which most football coaches that are really competitive aren't content to do, or there's going to have to be something. Without mass transfers who can play right away, I just don't see the issues next year being really a lot different. No, maybe some of your DBs you tell me. I thought some of those DBs like Sewell and Russell, Allen Wright were better maybe athletically than what they had by a little bit, but playing corner in the SEC, I mean, you see first rounders who look bad as freshmen. That's just a tough position to play right away. Maybe you get a little bit of an uptick there, but I mean, like, how many times today did you see a receiver get beat downfield and just tackle a receiver, or Emory Jones overthrew a ball? And that's where they are.
Oh, I mean, no, the first I knew, I threw my hand. It might have been off Florida's first play of the game where he threw it, or I think it was. I hate putting people's names out there. I think it was on Max Worship. If I'm wrong, sorry to Max, but I do think, like, he was just beat off the edge so bad that the ball was underthrown. So the guy sat there and just waited for it to come, and Max was trying to catch up. It's just that level it looks like we're on another level, and not in a good way.
Yeah.
There's got to be an answer somewhere. I just don't.
Look,
we don't get paid enough to find
no
to solve it.
We don't get paid enough to cover it, but anyway. But look, and I feel bad for the players, especially when you get beaten. I mean, like I said, neither of us could do anything about that if we were in their shoes, and they're doing the best they can, and they're getting beaten down. The situation with the program is what it is. The culture there is what it is, and you do feel badly for a group of players that works hard and they're doing the best they can, and it's just this is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always been a lot tougher on players, just being one. It's one of those, kind of ego things where I always felt like I took the accountability and the responsibility, so I expect other people to do it. But it's also one of those things, I can understand putting myself in that locker room and just, having it be overwhelming. Such a thing might truly change you.
Well, let me ask you a different question. The speed is one thing. How do you fix the offensive line stuff? Because here we are, and it's every week. Maybe not as much it wasn't as much last week. And people got on to Ken Seals today, and it wasn't Ken's best game. But again, you look last week where he had time to throw, and he had some matchups where his guys could win downfield, and he had a pretty good play. When we had more of a fair fight, he was pretty good. Today, it's what we're going to see a lot of the rest of the year out of the defenses they're going to play. They're just going to be overwhelmed up front with their strength and athleticism, and I don't know how fixable that is between this year and next. You played the position, so I trust you to address that in a good way here.
Well, the problem with when I watch things like our secondary and our linebackers, and if you're getting burned all the time, or if you're smaller, you're stuck with that ailment. Yep. In offensive line play, you at least have the opportunity to sort of counteract that. I'm trying to think of it, trying to think of the word, but it's not that important on offensive line play. If you can pass a twist and do the technique right, you're ahead of 80-90% of players. For some reason, it's really hard for people to figure out how to do this. I think they have the best strategy they can do right now with the offensive line. That's pick 5, and that's because Chris, they were all over the place during both camps, spring, fall. I mean, Drew left. There was a lot going on, but they've now had 5, and they're like, you're the offensive line. Go for it, man. We're going to ride with you guys, and we're going to give you experience. And at the very least, I would hope that guys like Hernandez, Ashmore, Cox, guys that are going to be together, at least we'll have 3 guys with experience on the line now next year that can, with whoever they need to fill in, they can at least pass that knowledge or give that expectation. Because it's 5 guys who came in and were just, trying to figure it out on the fly, and that's never going to work. You could instantly tell with how much teams were attacking the twist games, how undisciplined they were. It's just going to take tough coaching and time, but at least that can be solved internally. The rest of the talent gap, I don't know about that.
Anything else before we get into the questions from the board, and there are many of them?
I don't think so. I think we should just get right into it, because there are a lot of questions.
And thanks to Sutherland and Belk for sponsoring this feature. Had the read in front of me, and now it's gone. Oh, no, here it is. Hey, this is sponsored by Sutherland and Belk, a family-owned injury law firm. If you or a loved one has been hurt in an accident, give Taylor or Russell a call, 615-846-6200, see what your rights are, and if they can help. I guess I'll just read through these and ask them to you.
Okay.
Via Matt 23. Why do they not throw to the middle of the field? Why do they punt at their own 46th on 4th and short, down 42 points? A lot of people were aggravated about that second one for sure.
Yeah. for your first question, why do we not throw in the middle of the field? It's hard to believe that they don't have middle of the field routes drawn up. That might be a quarterback thing. That might be something they're coached. I'm not in there, so I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think they've been successful on the outside. I think we actually, one of our strengths is having matchups. Amir is good on the outside, although he stepped too far outside this week, which was extremely frustrating.
Huge. Two plays in a row, Bruno, that he has a touchdown maybe if he just runs his route better. And I'm not here to bag on Amir. I think he should have seen the field before, but he was a kid who hadn't played football a lot coming in. He'd been a competitive swimmer, and is it stuff like that keeps you off the field, just the inability to be aware of where the sideline is? Because that's huge.
Yeah. I mean, that's just being a football player. That's what a coach would say. And you're like, oh, that's an umbrella term. Yeah, it is. You got to get it done. You got to get it done. Why do we punt? That, I obviously don't agree with that, but that's obviously, probably waving the white flag too, and just being like, let's get out of here. And it sucks to hear that, but that's probably the honest truth.
Dorking asks, seems like speed in our defensive secondary is a real issue. Thoughts? I think we answered that.
Speed, height, strength, skill. Yeah, it's a big issue there.
Other than that, Ms. Lincoln, I thought the play calling was a bit better today. What was your take?
Yeah, it was better. And that showed with, they were converting on third down a lot. They were I think one of the best things was they managed to stay in front of the chains on first down. Huge, right? That's what makes third down completions. If you see a team let's say we miss the Nebraska-Michigan game later, and we go back and we see Michigan was 3 of 14 on third down, we're like, oh my gosh, they must have been terrible on third down. Most likely they were terrible on first and second down, and that's why their third down was so bad. I think the play calling was just good, and they were executing on first and second. The real problems with the execution were at the clutch points of scoring as the red zone, maroon zone, which is right before the red zone. And yeah, I think it was fine. I think there was just coaches will a lot of times allude to, it was an execution issue, and that sometimes seems like it's just throwing the players under the bus. But yeah, that's kind of what it was. I think they called a game that was all right enough to be competitive today.
Who you with VU asks, are there issues with strength and conditioning? We already know about team speed and talent being major issues, but with the new strength and conditioning program, we somehow look weaker than we have. You tell me.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. I think from what I've heard, it's been an absolute grinding hellfest to, try and survive the strength and conditioning program. I think the guys are working hard. I think some of them just might not have been born with it, which is a tough pill to swallow, but it's just, we see it. We see it clear as day. The Stanford game, seeing it with my own eyes was all I needed. That was a bad one. One thing
that has translated, I thought that in camp they were in better shape. They worked them pretty hard. I didn't think endurance was going to be an issue. And talent's an issue, but to their credit, they do have 2 fourth-quarter comebacks, which I think speaks some to that. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
It is what it is. I mean, at least you can criticize strength and conditioning. I don't know if that's where the blame for this really goes. Maybe they could have done some things better, and probably, I'm going to guess when you're getting beat 104-0 in 2 SEC games or whatever, there's probably something there that could be done better. But it's not really at the top of my list of things. And I do see some things on the conditioning end that indicate, hey, some stuff they did might have worked, given that they have 2 comebacks. Mm-hmm. So
exactly. I mean, winning in the fourth quarter is not an easy thing to do, and they've done it twice. I think that was an amazing point you made. It actually speaks more to the strength and conditioning coaches might be doing the best job. Some guys just aren't gonna. When you have a 5'9" DB out there, what do you want to do? Put him on the medieval stretcher and stretch him out? I mean, there's not much else you can do within the legal realms of winning.
That was never tried with any of your teams, was it?
We should have been.
Franklin might have done that. I wouldn't put it past him.
He might have. He might have. I just might have missed those stories.
Yeah. There were some stories. Torking says, why do they roll right out to the left on fourth down play? Not sure you should ever roll a quarterback out to his weak side.
I think the quarterbacks roll out to the weak side all the time. That's a great question, mainly because I don't have the answer to it off the top of my head. But we would always roll Kyle out to the weak, and every single team I played for, we always roll out to the weak. We don't have a strong side rollout, and if we do, I mean it's a literal grab, fake run, and instant throw right over the middle to a tight end. I don't know why the rollout to the weak is the option. I think I would need to ask Kyle this, and I'll probably get you the answer later. I might reply, but I think the reason is because the matchup you want is on the edge, because you shift, you're faking the run to the left, right? That's supposed to be the whole point. So that way you can get the matchup one-on-one on the backside that you want to go over, and then hopefully win the route. So that way you roll out to that one-on-one matchup and then can turn and see it. I think that Florida just played against it really well.
Vandy Nash responded to that one with his answer, and I'll let you digest this. He says, I don't think he's supposed to do that. He's supposed to push up in the pocket and set his feet. It's hard for linemen if the hole doesn't push up in the pocket like the line is supposed to do. I think there might have been a missing word or misplaced word, but if you can make sense of that, have at it.
It's hard for linemen if the hole doesn't push up to the pocket like it's supposed to. It's one of those things where we would have to be in that coach's room to understand what their goal is.
Yeah.
These are guys that get paid a lot of money to do this, so I'd imagine it's not like, oh, we're gonna roll Mike out to the right for no reason. If anything, he might have a great point, because Mike's been notorious for kind of improvising, so it might have just been an improvisation from the start.
Nash Native 615, question by my count, VU is 7 passes between the hashes out of 45 attempts, nearly identical to last week, who is scheming up this offense to almost completely ignore the middle of the field. They are 6 for 7 for 70 yards when throwing to the middle of the field, with nearly 40% of their yards on 18% of their attempts. I do have a little bit of a possible explanation, but I want to hear yours.
I don't know. He should send. We need to get those numbers sent to the. I'm interested to hear what you're saying, because if I saw something like this as an offensive minded guy, I would feel like, you know what, we need to follow this trend 100%. But I'd like to hear your take, Chris.
Where was the pick today? I can't remember if Ken had 1 or 2. Was that between the hashes?
I think it was right on top of the left one. Going.
He had 2
behind the field.
I don't remember what the other one was.
Yeah, I assume what you're gonna say is that Ken's scared of the underneath protection where the linebackers are flowing. So he's that's where he's scared of the picks from there, which is understandable because the linemen are covering the linebackers.
Here's the piece that nobody's gonna have but me and you and maybe a couple other people, right? And this has been since he got here. When he gets picked in practice, as often as not, if maybe more often, it seems to me like it is a linebacker or somebody underneath that he just doesn't see. And so maybe it is to keep that from happening. I don't know. I still think I'd attack the middle of the field. And look, you're going to throw interceptions at any point on the field. But that, to me, that might be something. When I've seen Ken struggle with picks in practice, a lot of times it seems to me very unscientific, but it seems to me like he gets a lot of those or underneath balls where he just doesn't see a guy underneath. And so maybe they're trying to work around that a little bit.
Yeah, Nash Native, I would think what Chris is saying is right on the money. It's probably a worrisome. I'm sure his coach is like in the film room, like, why aren't you throwing this? Why aren't you throwing this? Why aren't you throwing this? And one of those underlying reasons might be he's scared of the underneath protection, the zone. So
Reagan VU, we don't know that guy, do we? No. He's got a question.
What is he doing? He's supposed to be watching my sister play volleyball.
I hope your mom is not watching. If Vandy could upgrade one position group next year, what would be your highest priority? Would you see the transfer portal? Would you use the transfer portal, high school, or both?
So, I'm going to answer the second part of this question first. I changed my mind on the transfer portal. I grew up my whole life in Clarksville, Tennessee. My father, who might be familiar with us, graduated playing
Maybe.
football from there, and they were historically considered the worst football team in America by far. I mean, 0 wins, 1 win, season after season after season after season. And then this guy named Will Healy came along and took every single, I think, SEC misfit and transfer he could find, and then won out of nowhere. Just was winning at Austin Peay. And then he got better jobs. And I was like, holy crap. I think this is the way. Who would have thought better players is the answer? Exactly. So I'm a transfer portal guy, and if I have to upgrade any single position group, probably be 100% without a doubt in my mind the outside linebackers or the D line. Get me.
I think it's offensive line, and defensive backs.
Dude, I cannot stand.
How's that? We basically hit the whole field. You had 2 answers, and I had 2, and
I cannot. There's something about me that cannot stand. Like, there's something about me that cannot stand having to potentially block Myles Garrett as a redshirt freshman, and then I'm watching the adverse of our defensive line, and it just seems.
No,
like
wait a minute. He did say transfers. He did say transfers.
Yeah. What about it?
Well, I mean, if you get transfers who can block, then why not?
Yeah. Well, I'm just making the case for I want D linemen that can rush the passer. That's all I want. I'm so tired of just seeing other teams' offensive linemen just going, "Hey, I'm going to get a 100% grade on this game," because our D line just locks up and then just waits to bat down the ball. I can't stand that. That's a pet peeve of mine. It's more of a personal thing.
When do we get Mac Reagan stories on the post game?
Oh, probably never, because they'll incriminate him. So
that's a strong word.
Yeah, I know. He's the nicest guy in the world.
Mac Reagan's a good man. I have a lot for Mac Reagan.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh boy, Ann Arbor Door, great offense, defense, special teams.
Here's the worst part, Chris, is we constantly are trying to find the good and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, you got shut out. Offense is an F. At the end of the day, defense got 40 points scored up on them. That's an F. Special teams
missed 3 field goals, had a 5-yard punt.
Yeah,
gave up a fake punt.
I mean, it's all. Is that what you wanted, Ann Arbor Door? It's all Fs, all right. It's just how it is. You can't polish a turd too much. It's an F.
I thought this was my job.
No, I mean we're all watching the same game at this point. It is what it is.
Okay. Let's see. That's a comment, not a question. Well, it is a question, but let's see.
Yeah, there's something about Vanderbilt shaking punts at Florida. Harley Hog 44. I don't know what it was. Tommy Openshaw was a extremely great and successful and consistent kicker who we made punt, and he was doing well at punting. But if he doesn't shank that punt back in 2016, we probably win that game.
Were you on the team where Florida couldn't hit a field goal all year, and they hit a long one to beat you at the buzzer?
Yeah,
or the last minute.
Me.
Sorry.
They bring in
You're like, why do I do this? Why do I do this?
No, they bring up a backup kicker. So their first kicker hasn't made any. It's a notorious national story that their kickers suck. So they bring in a guy who's been practicing for a week, and he nails a 40-something yarder on us to win. Absolutely unreal. After we shanked the punt. So I don't know.
You know what I want? I want a season where the kicking game isn't half the story. Can we have that?
Yeah. Well, for the most part, this season it was 2-game winners.
It was good, right?
At least if we're gonna lay a dud, let's do it against when we're getting blown out against Florida.
That's true.
And then save it for maybe South Carolina when we need it.
If you play the rearrange the missed field goals, that might not work in your favor. So, let's see. I think the question thread is devolved into griping, which tends to happen when you're one for your last 20 in the SEC or whatever it is now. I think you still have some fans that don't understand that, but anyway. Here's a question. Star Walker VU, why does the staff continue not to use Wright in certain situations like deep in the red zone? Get an extra running threat in there when the passing game is more difficult. Wright is no Tebow, but I'd use Seals and Wright like Meyer did with Leak and Tebow during Tim's freshman season. I'll let you have it that.
I think that's a great question, and I think the answer is we have to figure out this thing one thing at a time. You can't just this is going to be the worst analogy in the world, but you can't just make a good burger and just put the patty down and be like, all right, now we're going to add all the other stuff. No, you got to make sure the meat's good, right? So they have to make sure that the fundamental foundation of this offense is figured out first. They need reps. They need all of that. They just need this foundational offense to get reps. And this team can't handle a binder this big, like let's say like 4 inches tall. They can't handle that playbook. So I'd love to use Mike too, but we're just not there yet. We need to be able to run inside zone correctly. We need to be able to stay in bounds on our passes. So I get the frustration there, but I can also see why the coaches are like, let's learn to walk before we can run.
Anything else?
I think we hit everything, Chris. I'm out of breath, so
I'm looking up. I'm watching Georgia whip Auburn with Stetson Bennett.
Oh, really? What's the score?
I think it's 17-3. Did you catch the end of Arkansas and Ole Miss?
I did.
That was phenomenal.
First of all, shout out to both of those programs. Both programs that were kind of and then just, it seems they've taken the step up to the next level to great SEC programs, especially Arkansas. Arkansas's proven that can happen. It can really happen fast, with the right kind of thing. I never thought it'd be Sam Pittman that would be Arkansas' savior, but here we are.
If people didn't watch that, the last play of the game, Arkansas just scored a touchdown, goes for the 2-point conversion rather than getting into shootout with Ole Miss. That game was in Oxford. I thought that was the right call. Frankly, I think your chances probably are better getting a 2-point conversion than trying to match up. I mean, given the way the points were flying off the board and as easily as they were moving the ball and Jefferson's mobile and, I don't know, it didn't work out, but I didn't think it was a bad call.
And this might be the worst advice ever, but if I'm a coach and I'm in that situation, I loved it. I would say if you're the coach, you ask your offense, you think you can win it, and if they all instantly go, give us the ball, leave it in their hands. At least that way the whole team can, feel like that it went down the way it was supposed to, rather than going shootout, especially against Ole Miss, a team that's notorious for shootout style offense. So I thought it was the right call too, and it just wasn't their day.
I respect the coach who does that because that's a call that it seems like you've got more to lose as a coach than you do to win, because they're going to remember it more. If you go for it and win, they're going to be talking more about maybe the game and everything. If you go for it and lose, then you open yourself up to questions because it's not the conventional move, I guess, and it just leaves you open to be second guessed. Have respect for any coach that will do that in that spot. And when you've scored 50 points in the game to that point, and again you're on the road, to me, I don't think that's a bad decision.
It shows trust in his guy. He trusts those guys that were out there. He's like, we're going to score and we're going to win. I know that, and it didn't happen, but that goes a long way with the guys who follow you. So.
Yeah. Any parting thoughts?
I still think this Vanderbilt team sneaks up on one team by the end of the year.
Missouri is. I think Missouri's the best chance. Is my guess. I think South Carolina. That they can win. Like if they play that game 10 times, I don't think they lose all 10. And Carolina got exposed today. Carolina played an easy schedule. The defense had been good. I still think Carolina's got better athletes. So they're going to have to be on their game next week. You can't get penalties. You can't get turnovers. Oh, by the way, Carolina has a corner who's the leading guy in the country in interceptions coming into today. I don't know how he left it, but it's not going to be easy. It's not one they can't win. I still say Missouri's their better shot because Missouri just cannot defend.
Yeah. Well, that's the surprise we'll get. Let's see which one. Let's see which teams that Vanderbilt can take on.
That's a wrap.
I think so.
Okay. Well, thank you to Jody Jones, DDS. Thank you to Sutherland and Belk. Thanks for watching the VandySports postgame show. We will see you again after next week's game when Vanderbilt faces South Carolina. And also, I'll do the usual midweek stuff. We've got Clark Lee's press conference up at our YouTube channel. I usually do a breakdown of his midweek press conference we do. So anyway, he's Bruno Reagan. I'm Chris Lee. Thank you for watching the Vandy Sports Postgame Show.